Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Sri Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 O my Lord Sri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, of all pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by Srila Prabhupada, Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, chapter 28. Paranjan becomes a woman in the next life. Today's text 54. Hangsa vahang chatvang charya. Sakaya manasayanao. Abhutam mantaravauka. Sahasra parivatsara. Hangsa vahang chatvang charya. Sakaya manasayanao. Abhutam mantaravauka. Sahasra parivatsaran. Hangsa vahang chatvang charya. Sakaya manasayanao. Abhutam mantaravauka. Sahasra parivatsaran. Bolo.
Hamsavam Chatvam Charya Sakaya Manasayana Utamantara Vauka Sahasra Parivatsara
Hamsavam Chatvam Charya Sakaya Manasayana Sahasra Parivatsara Hamsavaham Chatvam Charya Sakaya Manasayana Abhutamantara Sahasra Parivatsaram
Hamsavam Chatvam Charya Sakaya
Manasayanao. Abhutamantara Sahasra parivatsaran. Word for word. Hangsao. Two swans. Aham. I. Cha. And. Vam. You. Cha. Also. Arya. O great soul. Sakaya. Friends. Manasa Ayanao. Together in the Manasa lake. Abhutam
Abhutam
became
became
Antara
Antara
separated.
separated.
Va
Va
indeed.
indeed.
Okaha
Okaha
from the original home.
from the original home.
Sahasra
Sahasra
thousands.
thousands.
Pari
Very
successively.
successfully.
Vatsaran
Vatsaran
years.
years.
Translation. So this is a Vigyata supersoul in the guise of a Brahmin. Continuing to speak. Translation. My dear gentle friend, both you and I are exactly like two swans. We live together in the same heart, which is just like the Manasa lake. Although we have been living together for many thousands of years, we are still far away from our original home. Please repeat, my dear gentle friend.
My dear gentle friend.
Both you and I are exactly like two swans.
Both you and I are exactly like two swans.
We live together in the same heart,
We live together in the same heart,
which is just like the Manasa lake.
which is just like the Manasa lake.
Although we have been living together for many thousands of years,
Although we have been living together for many thousands of years,
we are still far away from our original home.
we are still far away from our original home.
Srila Prabhupada's purport, the original home of the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, both the Lord and the living entities live together very peacefully. Since the living entity remains engaged in the service of the Lord, they both share a blissful life in the spiritual world. However, when the living entity wants to enjoy himself, he falls down into the material world. Even while he is in that position, the Lord remains with him as the super soul, his intimate friend. Because of his forgetfulness, the living entity does not know that the Supreme Lord is accompanying him as the super soul. In this way, the living entity remains conditioned in each and every millennium. Although the Lord follows him as a friend, the living entity, because of forgetful material existence, does not recognize it. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master is kindly opening my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Before I go any further, that line, Kirtaneshwar Prabhu, where Prabhupada says, in this way the living entity remains conditioned in each and every millennium. That seems to support what you were saying about how, what was that thing we were talking about?
You were saying that why is it that Krishna is saying that each before creation?
Before creation, yeah. So millennium usually means when everything's wound up, yeah, and then everything is, yeah, and then everything's put forth again. There's different kinds of devastations. So, yeah. Okay, so we're on text 54. So since verse 52, Queen Vaidarbhi has been receiving instructions from the Brahmana. What's his name, the Brahmin? Abhigyata. Have they mentioned the name yet? Actually, they have, but that was earlier in the in chapter 25. Narada Muni mentioned it that early, and then later, anyway. So Vigyata, she's been receiving instructions from so far it's just called the Brahmin friend, her old unknown friend. That was mentioned in maybe yesterday's verse, old unknown friend, maybe earlier, who represents the super soul in the story Narada Muni is telling King Barishat. So King Barishat from chapter 25 through 27 told about, Paranjani, and the whole the destruction of Paranjan, the city, and the whole thing. King Barishat didn't get it, so he said, "Could you please explain this?" So now Narada Muni is doing another one, in which King Barishat will get it. It's very stark. So, and that was text 52, that Queen Vaidara, she's lamented, she's about to throw herself on the pyre, but she still she needs instructing. And this is, she needs instructing. So, in verse 53, Abhigyata tells Queen Vaidarbhi that he is her old friend. And that was yesterday's verse. He's her old friend. That she can't recognize him because since time immemorial, she's been ignoring him. So it's just like you can't recognize somebody you've been ignoring. Trying to enjoy the material world. She's been so preoccupied with trying to enjoy the material world that, what's the analogy? Two birds are on a tree. Dva suparna sayuja sakaya. It says in Mundaka Upanishad, there's two birds on the tree of the body. One's the witnessing bird, that's the super soul. One's the enjoying bird. He's trying to taste the fruits of the body. Sometimes it tastes bitter. Sometimes the body hurts, and sometimes it tastes sweet, and sometimes whatever the pleasure is from the sense objects. But meanwhile, the witness bird is just patiently waiting for the enjoying bird, quote unquote, to turn to him. Now, in today's verse, Abhigyata says, we're going to take it line by line because it's very interesting. Hangsa vahang chatang charya. You and I, which as Prabhupada has rendered it like this, you and I are exactly like two swans. So who can tell us how the swan is usually brought in? What's the special power of the superpower of a swan, as they say, the superpower?
They're attracted to very nice places, and the devotees are often called swan-like devotees, and they can separate milk from water.
Yeah, right. They can take the essence, right? So that's why sometimes you hear when we say the Prema Dvani Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa. So Supreme Swan. Why is the pure devotee called Paramhamsa? Because he can take the essence of life and leave aside the rest. You and I are exactly like two swans. So he's saying to her, come on, we're of the same quality. The Lord is reminding Queen Vaidarbhi and all of us that we, as spirit souls, are swan-like, meant for pursuing life's essence. Not like crows. What do crows do? They pick through the garbage. Yeah, and it's, in Kali Yuga, so many of us go dumpster diving.
Sometimes you get a bunch of trash and they put out their arms.
Holy smoke. Yeah, poking through refuse. Why? Just for our own, that's our sense gratification. We're going to the mode of ignorance for our sense gratification. So that's the first line. And the next line, Sakayao Manasayanao. We live together in the same heart, which is just like the Manasa lake. Okay, the same heart. So in the heart, we learned this in the second canto, there's the soul and the super soul. In the same heart. That's in the region of the heart. The heart is the seat of what? And so if the consciousness, soul is radiating consciousness. Where we stay with the Lord, little spirit and big spirit. So we're tiny. We're of the same quality as Krishna. So our consciousness is never as big as Krishna. But still, we're swans. We live in the same place, the Manasa lake. So Manas means mind, actually. Like if you go to Vrindavan, ever been to Manasa Sarovar? Manasi Ganga, right. How did that happen? How did that lake get there? You know there, Swandamani, how Manasi Ganga came to pass?
Sanatana Goswami or Shiva, right?
I'm trying to remember it too now. But anyway, okay, forget it. I don't know well enough. It's something Krishna called all the holy rivers, right? That was the punchline. You don't need to go anywhere. Just bathe in this river. By my mind, I'm going to attract all the holy rivers to come here. Okay. Then he says, Abhutam antaravalka sahasra parivatsaran. So this is very interesting. This the Brahmana, the super soul actually, disguised as a Brahmana. Although we've been living together for thousands of years, we've been in this world so long. Sahasra, it means literally thousands. We're still far, far away from our original home. So it's because although we live in the heart with the super soul, but we're conditioned. And there are so many things that in our consciousness, in the region of the heart, that's contaminating. And the biggest contamination is we're attached. Like Vaidarbhi, she was so attached to her husband, and he was a great soul, but still she needed to learn some things because she was about to jump, into like a sati, into the fire because she was feeling the pain of her husband's separation worse than the pain of fire. So this is the time when we're suffering that Krishna tries to reach us. That's very often, we all have our stories of how we came to Krishna, and usually there's a lot of suffering there because we ask, why? Why am I suffering? Yeah, and so that's a good time. Usually we're so intoxicated with trying to enjoy the material world, even if we aren't, that we don't even ask the question. But then, when it gets really bad, then there's an in there. So he's saying we're still far from our home because I've been with you, accompanying you. I'm your friend, but still you keep trying to hang on here. It doesn't make any sense. Now, in his purport, Prabhupada points out that although the Lord is so close to us, because we persist in trying to enjoy the material world, millennium after millennium, yuge, we don't recognize him. How dull our consciousness has become. That this person who is closer to us than our heartbeat and our breath and our, we don't even recognize him. How dull our consciousness has become, and how kind Krishna is to stay with us even as we ignore him. Somebody ignores me, I'm okay, like when I go out for my little walk every morning, I always look to see, I only say hi to somebody who looks at me. And I want to say hi to everybody, but sometimes people just, they really don't want to look at you. So, okay. You ignore me, I'll have to ignore you. I'm not as, as kind as Krishna, where I'll go up and say, hi there. I'm from the temple. Would you like to get out of here? Have you heard of Krishna, right? Yeah. So Krishna's not like that. He's very patient. He's very kind. He's just waiting. I'm here whenever you're ready. I'm here. Okay. So I was telling Kirtaneshwara yesterday that when he was with Liam. So I was just blissed out because I had just read this piece in the new BTG. This piece by Chaitanya Charan. It's called Ahalya Cursed. And it's very relevant. I'm going to read some relevant sections from this piece about what's going on here with Abhigyata and Vaidarbhi. So, in this regard, I like to read part of Chaitanya Charan, who, the spiritual scientist who we had here, and he gave these amazing classes. He's promised to come. And yeah. But has he come to America yet? Or no?
Yeah, he was just in Phoenix.
He was?
Just up the street.
Oh, did he leave?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I got his email. I'm going to get on his case.
And even last year, I said it's been 2 years, and then last year I called him up when he was still in India, and I said, "Can't you come down here? Remember how you liked it so much?" He goes, "Yeah, it's too tight. I promise next year I'm going to come."
All right.
I'm sorry, we'll not take
Okay. Well, I'm going to say, this is, and this, he's not practicing what he's preaching here then.
Help with your wallet.
No, I know he's not like that, but anyway, there's something going on. All right. So listen to this. This is very interesting, and it has to do with Lord Ramachandra, has to do with Gautam, Rishi. What's going on? You cursing each other? Okay.
Yeah. I feel it's because of him, he's not coming.
Yeah, when I drove over to the airport, he promised me up and down too. So
Maybe that's his MO.
Yeah. Well, I have a reason now because he promised me too. It wasn't just okay. Got his case. I do have his email. All right. Okay. Ahalya cursed. Ahalya is the wife of Gautam Muni. Listen to this story. I never even knew this. By Chaitanya Charan Das. A lesson from the Ramayana. Comes from the Ramayana actually. On how our choices lead to the shrinking and expanding of our consciousness. So in the Ramayana's first section, there occurs a story that can seem merely worldly or even discriminatory. You'll see what he means as he gets into this. If appreciated at a deeper level, however, it demonstrates universal truths about the movements of human consciousness, how it shrinks and how it expands. It is a story of a woman who was cursed and blessed. So the first part of the piece, Chaitanya Charan names, or maybe the editors named this, I'm not sure. The curse and the twist. So here's the curse and the twist. While Rama, along with Lakshman, was being led by the sage Vishvamitra to Mithila to protect his sacrifice from demons. You remember the Vishvamitra Muni went to the ashram of, what's the father's name? Dasarath, right. And yeah, boy, my consciousness is shrinking, or maybe just aging. And so Ram and Lakshman, they were boys, and so Vishvamitra Muni said, I need your boys to help me get rid of some demon. Okay, so Dasarath said, okay. So while Ram, along with Lakshman, was being led by the sage Vishvamitra to Mithila to protect his sacrifice from demons, they came across a hermitage that seemed habitable, but was abandoned. So it seemed like, wow, this is a nice hermitage, but nobody's here. What's going on? Curious, Ram inquired about it. So there's so many plots and subplots in these epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata. Vishvamitra answered, This was once the residence of the great sage Gautam, but he abandoned it after an unfortunate sequence of events involving deception, betrayal, and cursing. So here's what happened. Seeing the princes intrigued, although they're, of the quality of Godhead, but they were, they wanted to hear more. Vishwamitra narrated the story. So years before, Gautam lived there with his wife, Ahalya, whose beauty was so exquisite as to be celebrated throughout the universe. There's a picture here of Ram Lakshman listening with rapt attention to Vishwamitra. And then there's this is the end. I won't spoil it. Okay, this is the pictures from the end of the thing. Okay. So Gautam's wife was Ahalya, whose beauty was so exquisite as to be celebrated throughout the universe. Even gods had desired her, but gave up that desire after her marriage to Gautam. So gods, they got their principles, and okay, she's spoken for, so she belongs to Gautam. However, but there's one deva who doesn't care. Can you guess who that is? Indra. However, the chief of the gods, Indra, too much lusty, held on to the desire, staying on the lookout for some opportunity to be with her. Once, when Gautam went to a nearby river to bathe, so Indra's so lusty, he said, okay, he went to the river. Indra grabbed the opportunity and went to the cottage in the guise of Gautam. So he dressed up like her husband. Yes, yeah. Praising Ahalya's beauty, he led her inside the cottage and united with her. His desire satisfied, Indra went out of the cottage. At that time, at that very moment, Gautam returned after his bath, seeing his look-alike coming out of his home. So he spotted somebody dressed up like him. Seeing his look-alike come out of his home, the sage was taken aback. With his mystic power, he perceived that it was Indra who had assumed that form to be with Ahalya. Infuriated, he cursed Indra. You are so lusty. May your whole body become covered with the organ of your lust. So this is how Indra got his body covered. To Indra's horror, on his whole body suddenly appeared 1,000 vaginas. You never heard of this? Yeah, Prabhupada tells this part. Yeah. Then he has some very salty comments at the end of the story too. Hearing her husband's angry voice, Ahalya rushed out. So she was like horrified that her husband cursed Indra. Glaring angrily at her, he cursed her. Listen to this. Because of your unchastity, you will become a stone. Unquote. Okay, so he cursed her to be so, she was so unconscious, unthinking. He cursed her to become a stone. Now, Chaitanya Charan cuts in here. He says, this is the standard version of Ahalya's story. In this version, Ahalya seems to be the innocent victim of two men, one with uncontrolled lust and the other with uncontrolled anger. Now he says, however, this version overlooks, knowingly or unknowingly, one significant detail mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana. Listen to this. When Indra, disguised as Gautam, approached her, Ahalya perceived by her own mystic vision that the person approaching her was not her husband, so she wasn't really tricked. Was not her husband, but was Indra in disguise. She knew it was Indra. That recognition did not activate her wifely chastity, however. Listen to this. It activated her feminine pride. Ooh. She became inebriated, thinking that her beauty was so great that it had captivated a person as great as the king of the gods. So she was so intoxicated with her own beauty, and captivated him to such an extent that he had adopted a guise to approach her. Carried away by that inebriation, she lost her good sense and united with him. Wow. Okay. Now the next part is called consciousness, choices, and consequences. That she gave in to a moment of weakness certainly doesn't make her a villain, because we all can do that. But it does mean that she was not a mere victim either. And therein, in that shade of gray, lies the universal relevance of the story, because we're all prone, right, to temptation. We all may be overcome by temptation in moments of weakness. While such lapses are understandable, that doesn't stop them from being consequential. We're going to have to still face the music, face the consequences of our actions. Every choice has its consequence, though sometimes these consequences come so subtly and gradually that we may not perceive the causal connection. Yeah. On some occasions, like Ahalya's lapse, those consequences come immediately and drastically. Such occasions serve as sobering reminders for us to cautiously choose what we give our consciousness to. That is, what we think, and thereby what we do. So this is like, whoa, yeah, that's me. I gotta watch out what I'm giving my consciousness to. When Ahalya consented to infidelity, she voluntarily, listen to this, desensitized her consciousness. She voluntarily dumbed down. She desensitized her consciousness. Infatuated by pride in her beauty, she neglected her higher side, her awareness of her dharmic duties as a wife. So the demigods, most of the demigods, they said, okay, she's spoken for. But she got so proud of her own beauty that she'd attracted even Indra, that she just forgot about that she was the wife of Gautam, that was a dharmic principle. I can't, She knew it was Indra, but she just went against her Patni Dharma, wife Dharma. Inside us, we all have a higher side, this is Chaitanya Charan, and a lower side. Our higher side inspires us to lead a principle-centered life. When we live in harmony with our higher side, our consciousness expands. Isn't that interesting? When we live in harmony with our higher side, our consciousness expands, perceiving realities beyond immediate self-centered pleasures. In contrast, our lower side impels us to indulge in instant pleasures. We got to forget our higher nature when we just, go for the sense gratification. In instant pleasures, unmindful of any principles. When we live according to our lower side, our consciousness shrinks. We're getting locked in the things that give us pleasure here and now. It's like happiness in the mode of passion, right? We read about in the Gita, like nectar at first, but poison at the end. Now I'm just going to skip some part, but I'm going to read what happened later, because she was cursed, but listen to this, how she was released from the curse. This is very interesting, how she was released. This is the last part of the piece, and Chaitanya Charan calls it Ahalya redeemed. She's restored to her, demigoddess, or her Dharma Patni, wife of the sage. Ahalya redeemed. Disgusted with the whole sordid episode, Gautam walked away. So he cursed her to become a stone, and then he just left. Walked away, leaving the hermitage, deserted, because he left, he didn't want to even be there anymore, where his wife, was untrue to him, united with Indra, and he had turned her into a stone. So there was nobody there, because she was a stone. Indra had been cursed and had to deal with it. That's another thing. So we don't, but that is a separate story. Let's focus on Ahalya. So here's what happened with Ahalya. Concluding his narrative, Vishwamitra drew, because they were at the hermitage, where it was abandoned, and it was still there. Vishwamitra drew concluding his narrative, Vishwamitra drew Ram's attention to a stone lying near the deserted cottage. Atop the stone was a tulsi shrub, the only thing growing in that hermitage. Pointing to the stone, beneath the tulsi shrub, pointing to the stone, Vishwamitra said, "This is Ahalya. This is Ahalya, still existing in stone form. Because of her presence, the hermitage remains habitable." Because she's still there. She's inhabiting a stone. Like Prabhupada would tell us, mountains are living entities, stones, there's even consciousness in stones. It's just the least developed form of consciousness. You can become a stone. Because of her presence, the hermitage remains habitable, despite not being inhabited by someone in a more developed form, like a human. Rama, she has long been waiting to be delivered by the auspicious touch of your lotus feet. Yeah. This is what Vishwamitra tells Ram. Bless her by placing your feet on this stone. Unquote. Doing Vishwamitra's bidding, Rama touched the stone with his feet. And amazingly enough, the stone transformed into Ahalya. This is with the painting. You want to see? So there's Vishwamitra and Ram and Lakshman. And then there's Ahalya kneeling. And she's offering obeisances to Ram.
Human again.
Huh?
A human again.
A human again, but redeemed. Now she's learned a tough lesson, and then there's more to this. So in her beautiful female form. So she's still got her beauty. The same, but she's been chastened by this experience. She thanked Ram for his kindness in delivering her from the curse. Then she rose, and with his blessings, departed for an auspicious higher destination. So she left, she went upward. And now here's how Chaitanya Charan sort of gives the whole moral of the story. Expanding our consciousness. Let's consider the broader significance of Ahalya's redemption. Rama is God descended to the world. He is the highest, fullest, greatest reality. When our consciousness starts expanding, it takes in more and more of the reality around us. We see everything as Krishna's energy, right? As Krishna. When that expansion reaches its zenith, our consciousness reaches God. We become not just constantly conscious of him as the all-pervading reality, but also strongly attached to him as the all-attractive object of love. Indeed, God is the ultimate object of expanded consciousness. Yeah. So a pure devotee, His consciousness is so high, is so expanded because he loves Krishna. Significantly, not only do we become more conscious of God as our consciousness expands, but also by our becoming conscious of him, our consciousness expands further. That is, God is not just the object of expanded consciousness, but also the stimulant for the expansion of consciousness. So everything becomes an impetus for ecstatic love. Whatever we hear, like we hear the sound of a flute, we go, oh, Krishna. This is all in the nectar devotion too. When we bring our consciousness in contact with him, it becomes purged of the impurities that keep it constricted. So when we go for sense gratification, we think we're together. This is where it's at, but actually we're dumbing down, we're constricting, we're just limiting our pleasure and our love and our awareness to just one little flickering happiness. It becomes purged of the impurities that keep it constricted. Being thus cleansed, it surges forth, expanding toward nobler purposes and also ultimately toward the divine. The time-honored process for bringing our consciousness in contact with him, thereby stimulating its expansion, is bhakti yoga. So this is where the science comes in. Let's see. I got time to read this. An integral limb of bhakti is said to be taking the dust of the Lord's lotus feet. The extraordinary potency of contact with those feet is demonstrated dramatically in Ahalya's deliverance. Ahalya, being in stone form, had to passively wait for Rama to come and bless her with his lotus feet on her head as a stone. In fortunate contrast, we can actively seek contact with those feet, even if we are presently stone-hearted. So, Chaitanya Charan says, stone-hearted. I even Mahaprabhu, said that, taking the humble role. Why, if I loved Krishna, why am I still living? Why I have a heart of stone. For Ahalya, both changes, becoming a stone and regaining her beauty, happened suddenly and dramatically. For us, the changes in our consciousness, its shrinking or expanding, may happen much more gradually, and that's usually how it happens. It's a gradual dawning or darkening, depending on what we're doing. May happen much more gradually, yet the eventual results will be just as consequential. If we recognize how consequential each choice is, whether I'm choosing Krishna or Sanskrit or Maya, we will become much more conscious of what we are conscious of. And the more we strive to be conscious of the Lord, the more we will manifest our higher side and become spiritually enriched. So, Chaitanya Charan, I'm going to write you a letter. No. All right, so that really tied in with Vaidarbhi. She was so attached to her husband as a great soul, but she didn't necessarily have the expanded consciousness of her husband. She only became conscious that he had passed when she felt that his feet were cold. And now she's still, she's so attached to her husband, just like as Puranjan, he was so attached to his wife, and she became a woman. So he's, repeating the whole thing. That's how generally it works. We rotate genders attached to the opposite sex. So I thought that tied in very nicely. So we have to remember to choose Krishna, otherwise we're doomed. To repeat. Yes. Questions, comments, Prabhu.
Thank you for the nice story, transcendental. Jerry Springer's story. It's an intense one. That was an intense telling of that story. But
I like the point you made that you're making, that, you know, every choice elevating us or degrading us once brings back to memory this point that Padmanayan Prabhu made once when we were in Mayapur with him. And he likes to like pose questions to the devotees, you know, and see what their answers are. You know, one of the questions he asked was, how do you live in such a way that you get along with everybody? And devotee said different things, and he said, no. You know, eventually what he said was, what you must understand is that everybody you meet is doing one of two things. They're either being elevated or they're being degraded. They're being promoted or they're being demoted. So in any case, if you're friends with someone at one level, after they've become demoted, that friendship may disappear. And if you're friends with someone at one level and they've become so much more promoted than you, then that friendship may disappear because there's material elements there. We're friends because we have the same type of neurosis, so to speak. Whereas he said that if you really want to become friends with everybody and get along with everybody, the only way to do that is to simply live to encourage every person you meet in Krishna consciousness. By either serving them or by serving them either as a senior or serving them as a junior or serving them as an equal. But in any case, we have to have that consciousness of trying to elevate them in Krishna consciousness. I thought that was a really nice answer. And it just reminded me of that our consciousness is either expanding or contracting.
Yeah. Well, your comment reminds me of Vaisheshika Prabhu. His bottom line, he says, in every interaction, he tries to leave everybody with a
good impression.
Positive,
good impression.
And
he does.
And that's a very internal thing with devotees. But you said it's unfair, right? Either being the victim of the wrathful husband or the lusty Indra. In this version, Ahalya seems to be the innocent and victim of. Okay, however, this version overlooks, knowingly or unknowingly, it's kind of mysterious the way he puts that.
Yeah.
One significant detail mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana. Well, there's all the Ramayans. There's the Tulsi, the Ramcharita Manas or Tulsidas.
Also, James had a Ramayana too.
So maybe that is it.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps, yeah. He wasn't explicit about that, but yeah, and coming from India, maybe it was just him forgetting that not everybody knows there's different Ramayans. Yeah.
It just seemed like they're like, it's, if you're taking it as a, what lessons can we learn from this? It just seems like really scary lesson for women that like, oh, it doesn't matter if you're chaste or not because someone can just come and impersonate your husband, and if you don't realize it, then you're
screwed, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this, but she wasn't innocent, which is really good to know.
Yeah.
From Valmiki. Yes.
I was going to say, in a humorous, facetious way, that if everybody who cheated nowadays became a stone, and every man who cheated became a, covered by, there'd be a lot of weird things going on, You'd see a lot of rocks and a lot of weird creatures walking around.
That's why in Tucson we have, instead of grass, we have stones for your yard,
Or on the moon, all they found was rocks. Or,
Yeah.
Supposedly.
I did love crystals.
That's crazy.
Okay, but what? I missed that.
No,
Because my children really love crystals.
whoa.
Well, whatever. So Chaitanya Charan's point is well taken. That we have, it's every second we have a choice. We're either degrading, or we're either going closer to Krishna, or we're going farther away. All right. What do you think, Yamuna? You agree? All right. Laughing. You're just laughing at us. Don't you know? We didn't have a birth like you. We can't help it. I'm sorry. But actually, it was our choice. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.